The United States is in the middle of a color revolution. That is the subject of today's episode. And I just want to get started by, if you're new to this channel, uh, SIDLess is the name, and that stands for shit you didn't learn in school. And just like the title suggests, I go over subjects that you probably didn't learn in school, or they weren't explained very well, or they're kind of glossed over. I think the subject regarding what's going on with China today in the news, I think a lot of people are kind of left scratching their heads because they don't really understand the significance of what's going on. So let me do my best to try to explain it to you. So I'm on DuckDuckGo. This is a web search I've been promoting. I'm not getting paid for it, by the way, just disclaimer. This is just, I'm trying to get people away from Google because Google is compromised. And anything Google, including YouTube, they've been showing that they kind of are sort of communists. And anything regarding having a non-filtered web search, you can't get that at Google right now. So I'm using DuckDuckGo. And if you type in Chinese Communist Party, which is CCP, if you see that initials, that's what they're talking about. What do you call it? Look at all the stories that are popping up about it. All right. U.S. companies riddled with members of the Chinese Communist Party. 2 days ago, Chinese Communist Party orders teachers to establish Marxist religious view, promote atheism. 6 days ago. Um, Chinese Communist Party members worked in foreign consulates. Leaked Chinese Communist Party records show that CCP members employed in senior, specialist, and advisory positions. News just broke the other day that Australia, a news company over there, got a data dump of a list of Chinese Communist Party members that are pretty much, it's a list of thousands and thousands of names of individuals that are Communist Party affiliates that are literally placed in foreign governments, big corporations, strategically placed all over the place to help further the communist agenda. So, what's going on right now? I said we're in the middle of a color revolution. For people that don't know what a color revolution is, that's essentially a form of a coup. It's a form of government regime change. All right. And I'm not the only one saying this. All right. I'm gonna show you the story real quick at the Epoch Times. This is a good website. Former Special Forces officer warns of color revolution tactics used against Trump. All right. So what this guy is essentially saying is that he recognizes what's going on right now, and he's noticing that the pretty much the hallmarks of how this regime change happens, it's all happening to Trump right now. Okay. In 2019, there's this thing called the Transition Integrity Project. According to the officer, this project is an indicator that the events of this year's presidential election were transparently orchestrated by the Marxist elements within the Democratic Party and their Marxist allies in foreign governments. Now, when I say Marxist, what they're really talking about is they're talking about this guy, Karl Marx. I don't know why this is happening. There you go. That picture I was just trying to show you. Karl Marx. All right. He was a philosopher in like 1818 to 1883, right? And he started what would eventually become the communist ideology. And this is on the History Channel, on the history.com, just so you know. History is history.com. I can go into history.com. They just push the pseudo history that a lot of the mainstream pushes, but they do tell you some straightforward facts. And one of them is, did you know that the 1917 Russian Revolution, which overthrew 3 centuries of Tsar's rule, had its roots in Marxist beliefs? This revolution's leader, Vladimir Lenin, built his new proletarian government based on his interpretation of Marxist thought, turning Karl Marx into an internationally famous figure more than 30 years after his death. What it's saying is the Russian Revolution that started the Soviet Union, one of the first communist countries on the planet, the same Soviet Union that murdered millions of its own people to comply with the new government, and the same Soviet Union that we were in a Cold War with for half a century, that Soviet Union, it started because of these Marxist beliefs. All right. And you could trace all communist or all type of totalitarian type thinking back to Karl Marx. So anyone that claims to be a Marxist, what they're really saying is they believe in revolution. They believe in overthrowing regimes. All right. And that's important because I'll get to that in a second. Let me go back to this one. So what he's stating here, this officer who, I'll be honest with you, he's trying to name anonymous, but what this guy was trying to say is what's going on here in America right now is essentially a regime change. Okay. Let me just give you an example. All right. The officer said the tactics used by the anti-Trump opposition can be found in Special Forces Guide for Overthrowing a Government. All right. What you're getting from me, this is supported in all older unconventional warfare doctrines, the officer said. You could go to our manuals, pull them from the information I'm telling you. This isn't from someone who's a rabid Trump supporter. This is what's happening. The officer then talked about how President Barack Obama used his 8 years in office to seed his political allies all through the institutions, creating an underground or shadow government supported by legacy media and rioters. When the president being unable to get his own people into the administration, we effectively had a third administration of Obama, the officer said. So we come to what we have today. The underground are the elements within the government. We saw how they opposed the president and how they tried to impeach. The press is the auxiliary on the outside. The only thing we're missing is a real guerrilla force, which it can be mistaken to think that's just Antifa or Black Lives Matter. These are professional revolutionaries within these movements. Now, what he's saying is he's describing that you need several elements for it. You need the shadow government that pretty much undermines the Trump administration, which we can call all the Democrats in Congress right now, or not all of them, but most of them. That the press is essentially another side of this revolution. And I just did a video a couple of days ago, one called Fake News 101, another one called CNN Sucks. And CNN Sucks just got taken down off YouTube over a copyright claim, but I'm disputing that right now. And I already edited out the part of the video in question. So we'll see if YouTube actually puts it back up. It doesn't look like they're gonna. But that same video is on 2 other sites, and I haven't got any copyright claims at all. So just throwing that out there. Google owns YouTube, by the way. And Google, they're kind of communist. So it doesn't surprise me that YouTube took it down, but the other streaming services I put it on, UchTube and Rumble, didn't have a problem with it. So that should tell you something. Anyways, this is just one man's opinion, but like he said, this is like how to overthrow a government 101, what they're doing right now, this color revolution. So I want to introduce you to someone else that also talked about this stuff. This man right here, Yuri Bezmenov, Understanding Modern Political Scenarios. So this is a different YouTube video, and I'm not going to play it. I don't want to get all hit up over copyright claims again. But if I don't like promoting YouTube, but I will say that what you can do is look this up yourself and watch this whole, look at this. This is the title right here, Understanding the Political Scenario of India, Canada, Japan, China, USA, France, etc. It's over an hour long. It's just a interview he did where he explains how governments can be overthrown and stuff like that. But in a separate interview, I've seen this guy, and he explains there's 4 stages to overthrowing a government. And I found those right here. A nice little easy way to understand. The 4 steps to communism taking over a country. All right. And that same guy explained it. First, it's demoralization. This takes about 15 to 20 years time frame. The goal or purpose is to make a country immoral so they cannot recognize or believe in truth when it is presented to them. That is exactly what's going on now. 15 to 20 years, you got to look at what happened. What's a big event that happened 15 to 20 years ago? 9/11. Ever since 9/11, we've kind of been on this downward spike where patriotism has been shrinking and people are just less and less, proud to be Americans, essentially. And, ever since 9/11, when we went in Iraq and went in Afghanistan and we're all this war on terrorism, it's been a recurring theme of demoralizing the American people. All right, 9/11 was the first domino. And ever since then, our country, our youth essentially has been brainwashed into thinking America's a horrible country and that 9/11 was just a symptom of how horrible we are. They only attacked us because of how horrible America is. That's essentially what they're trying to get into the youth's head. All right. So the first step to take over is demoralization. All right. It takes about 15, 20 years. That's about as long as it takes as a whole generation to go through school. Okay. That's why they picked that amount of time. Now here we got destabilization. This is about 2 to 5 years time frame to create conditions where the tipping points for degrading society occur. 2 to 5 year time frame. That's about the term of one president. All right. And you can make the argument that that's Trump right now. That's Trump's presidency, that we're being destabilized because of Trump. I mean, that's how, his opposition would flip it. But Trump wasn't meant to be elected in office. All right. He essentially was kind of like a black swan event. No one could prepare for a Trump presidency. And Hillary's supposed to get in. And it's very possible, since Hillary is also a Democrat and also very friendly with China, she could use her presidency to either start a war or handle this COVID mess horribly. Or she could have had so many options, but she had 2 to 5 years to destabilize the country during her presidency, which is, they still attempted it with Trump in office. They just focused all their efforts on making him look out to be like a dictator. All right. Right now, I feel like we're in the middle, number 3, okay, which is crisis. Take advantage of the destabilization situations to seize power. Never let a crisis go to waste. All right. This is like regime change 101. Never let a crisis go to waste. What crisis have we been dealing with all year? The COVID-19 pandemic, or the scamdemic, from what I heard a lot of people talking about it. Like, this is the crisis. All right. So what did they do with the COVID-19 pandemic? They used the COVID-19 pandemic to shut down businesses, which would tank our economy. They've used it to enable mail-in voting, which is meddling with our election. And now they're using it to say, oh, we all need to be vaccinated, which there's all kinds of conspiracy theories about what they're really putting in those vaccines. And I won't even touch on that right now, but it's just the fact that they're using COVID-19 for all these other agendas. All right. And the biggest one currently right now is this election. All right. Like I just showed you, there's so many stories about China coming out in the news right now. It's because the world is waking up to the threat that China is. All right. Our political leaders before Trump were downplaying the threat. Joe Biden himself is constantly defending China. All right. His son is currently in a federal investigation for dealings he had in China. So you can't take their word for it. At least a lot of those older political leaders, they have conflicts of interest. All right. It's been shown that a lot of governors, a lot of secretaries of state, they become very friendly with people in the Chinese Communist government. And it's just been shown more and more how they've been allowed to just let China do whatever they want. China's been coming over here, taking our jobs. They've been taking part of our culture. You're not allowed to say anything bad about China on YouTube. I mean, even criticize China. I'll find it later. There was actually a story back in like June that YouTube comments that were critical of China, whether the video was about China or not, on any video, if there was comments critical of the Chinese Communist Party, YouTube was taking them down. And it was really weird because, at the time, a lot of us weren't really looking at China. We were focused on COVID. We were focused on the election. So it was weird that they were censoring that. But now with everything coming to light, it's become a lot more obvious that all these corporations over here in America, they're all kind of emboldened, or not emboldened. They're kind of bullied into doing what China wants. All right. For people that don't really understand how, economies work, is China has one thing over America when it comes to businesses and doing business, is they have a bigger customer base. All right, they got 1.4 billion people in that country. We only have like 350 million people over here. So these companies, their bottom dollar is affected whether or not they can do business in China. So China uses that to their advantage, and they come over here and they kind of tell, hey, Nike, it'd be a shame if you didn't, promote our Chinese propaganda, and because, we might not allow you to in our country. It's communist, so on a whim, if the leaders really wanted to, they could just axe whoever they wanted out of the country. There's no due process. It's communist, so they could do whatever they want. So that's how they do it. They do it through their economic opportunities they could provide. All right. And then they withhold those opportunities from corporations to kind of bully them into doing what they want. That's how they get the corporations in on it. But politicians, oh my God, I can't find it now, but they pretty much just allow anybody that has power to pretty much do deals with China. Like earlier in the year, Gavin Newsom decided to spend taxpayer money, all the money that I'm paying in taxes here, just state taxes, not even federal taxes, all our tax money. He spent over, I don't know, it was millions of dollars for doses, for masks, not doses, for masks from China. And he did it without permission. And it was a big purchase. And he just did it without telling anybody. And then he tried justifying it, saying that, oh, well, you know, California is a nation in and of itself. And we showed off our purchasing power by giving it all to China. It's like, no one stops to think that, well, if California is such a, you know, great economy, why did we spend that money in another country? Why didn't we spend it here or spend it in another state or keep it in the country? They sent it to China. All right. And it's not just Gavin Newsom. There's all kinds of governors that make similar deals and stuff. But it's not just the politicians and the corporations. You can say Black Lives Matter themselves is communist, all right? And if you don't know who this lady is, this is Patrisse Cullors. She is the co-founder of Black Lives Matter. And she has said in public that they are trained Marxists, all right? This organization, which got started during the Obama era, they're not really about racial justice, all right? You can see all over the news, not all over the news, all over social media, people coming out saying that if they really cared about Black lives, why aren't they in the neighborhoods? Why do they don't care about black on black crime? Why don't they help stop abortion? It's like all these other things they could be doing. It has nothing to do with saving Black lives. It has everything to do with pushing a communist agenda. All right. Because the way communist takeovers go is they demoralize a nation. All right. And they've literally done that here already. They demoralized us. All right. And they demoralized us by making us feel racist. All right. What happened this year? This whole entire year, they've been trying to get people to admit they're racist. They've been trying to get people to put up their fists and scream Black Lives Matter and scream their names. This is all communist Marxist propaganda. All right. They are messing with our minds and messing with the ideologies of everybody in this country. And the way they've been doing it is through propaganda. All right. It's crazy how they've been allowed to get away with this for so long. And the only man that's been able to stand up and actually do something about it has been President Trump. Why do you think he's always saying China, 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 China? All right. It's not that he just doesn't like the country or he's racist or xenophobic. No, there's all kinds of awesome Chinese Americans over here that bring so much value to the country. And he stated that on more than one occasion. He doesn't have a problem with Chinese people, which is how the communist media pushes it. All right. Communist media wants us divided. All right. Divide and conquer. So they push these racist reasons out there. We even know a lot of the things going on in politics has nothing to do with race. All right. It has everything to do with them driving a wedge between the people. And they've been doing it for a long time. All right. So, you know, I could just bring up all kinds of examples of how China, they've done horrible things to their own people, and they have no intention of being and playing nice with us. They have, let me type in, I'm going to show you a story that came out. Swalwell. Oh my God. Okay. Here we go. This guy right here. White House slams Swalwell, media for hypocrisy with alleged Chinese. This guy, Democratic Representative Eric Swalwell. This guy, let me click on it real quick. Yeah, it's MSN. It's CNN. Of course, they're gonna frame this in such a way to make this guy not look bad. But this guy right here, it's been come out that he was actually caught on tape having sex with a Chinese spy, and that Nancy Pelosi knew about it. So this hit the news recently, and this guy's a big anti-Trumper. He was pushing the Russia conspiracy theories. And now we come to find out that this whole time that he's been against Trump, he's been in bed with China. All right. So we're getting this story shown to us that China has been a threat the entire time. And this whole Russia stuff, it's been propaganda to get our attention away from China. Why do you think Trump is so consistent when he turns around and labels things? Now, that's China's problem. All right. That's why he calls COVID-19 the Chinese virus. You got to remember everything that's been happening this year. It goes back to China. The virus came from China. are these Black Lives Matter activists. I'm not saying everybody that joined Black Lives Matter is an activist and is propagandist, but the leaders of it, the one organizing all of it, they're the Marxists, and they've used this propaganda to get a lot of people on their side. All right. But I've seen stories of people that were in Black Lives Matter protests, and then when they saw something kind of immoral happening, like rioting or burning or anything like that, they wised up and they realized that, oh, wow, this movement isn't what I thought it was. And then they changed sides. And I actually saw a few of them become full-fledged Trump supporters after it. 1 minute they're wearing Black Lives Matter material, then are out in the protests and they're seeing that these riots are not peaceful protests. And then they turn around, open their eyes, and like, wow, actually Trump's the good guy. All right. He's been calling out China. He's been calling out these rioters. He's been doing everything right. And of course, the communist news network, they're just going to defend everything communist. They're going to defend everything that could be used against them. So what's going on right now is a color revolution. All right. So let me just type in exactly what a color revolution is, just so you understand how this, I mean, I already kind of explained it, but let me go a little deeper with this. All right. Worldwide media uses the term color revolution to describe various related movements that developed in several countries of the former Soviet Union, in the People's Republic of China, and in the Baltics during the early 21st century. The term has also been applied to a number of revolutions elsewhere, including the Middle East and the Asia-Pacific region during from the 80s to the 2010s. Some observers have called the events a revolutionary wave, the origins of which can be traced back to the 1986 People Power Revolution in the Philippines. Participants in color revolutions have mostly used non-violent resistance. Starting to get violent now. Such methods as demonstrations, strikes, and interventions have aimed to protest against governments. Color revolution movements generally became associated with a specific color or flower as their symbol. Black Lives Matter. That's a color. That's a color. Yeah, look, see, there's other people saying it. Color revolution, color revolution. The U.S. color, this is not so Phantom Menace. The U.S. color revolution has come home to roost, all right? Essentially, Black Lives Matter, and by extension, Antifa as well, they're color revolutions, all right? They're pretending to be nonviolent, but as we're seeing, they're calling themselves peaceful protests. That's how the color revolution works. But they're not peaceful anymore, all right? They're rioting, they're looting, they're destroying businesses. They've been trying to destroy businesses in two different ways. One, through their activists on the ground, and two, through the lockdowns. And the reason they're doing that is they're trying to tank the economy, because if you could take the economy of a country down, the people become desperate and then revolutions happen. So the whole point of these lockdowns, whole point of these peaceful protests has been to destroy our economy so that this revolution can become smoother for them. We are in the middle of a color revolution right now in America, and a coup on our elections. This is no joke. It's happening right now, and more info is being dropped on China. All right. They just released a list of, I think I already mentioned it earlier in the video. They released a list of all the communist members that are all throughout our government, the Australian government, and the UK government. And it's just to show and put in perspective how deep this goes. This has been, look, it says it takes, 15 to 20 years to happen, meaning 15 to 20 years is about the year 2001, 9/11. What happened a few years before that, or at least like a decade before that? The Soviet Union collapsed, all right? We thought we defeated communism, right? We thought the war against communism was over. No, America got complacent. It took them about a decade, but they got complacent. And China was silently just waiting for us to drop our guard. And then they've been slowly but surely just picking away at our economy with trade deals that our own government officials, congressmen, and past presidents have been allowing these skewed trade deals to favor China, because there are people within our government that are in on the revolution. All right. Joe Biden is in bed with China. All right. And he has actually pushed deals. He fought to get China on the World Economic Forum. He fought for them because he wanted them part of that, because he's an insider, and he, from the inside, has been trying to weaken America. This election is the most important election in our history, because it's a choice between a man who's trying to save this country, putting America first, making it great again, and a sellout who, as soon as he gets into office, is going to pretty much undo all the progress we made. He's going to put us back in the Paris deal. He's going to reestablish relations with China. We have relations with China. They're not good relations, but we already have relations. All right. He has already sold the country out, and he is going to make sure that all these investigations into Hunter Biden, his son, and his brother go away, because they're all in on it. And we're almost handed over the country to a communist takeover, and we're this close. We're this close. The election's not over yet, and I fully believe Trump's going to win in the end. But we've come this close to handing our country over to a bunch of communists, and our country would never be the same. I'm gonna do another video on this. I didn't want this one to be too long. I'm gonna do a part 2 to explain why communism is bad. I've been bashing communism over here the entire video, but I haven't really explained why communism is bad. Next video, I'll go into more detail. I just wanted to point that we're in the middle of a color revolution, and it's only going to get worse from here. So I end it there. Next video will probably be out in a couple days. For people, I'm going to put all my video links in the description. I'm on YouTube, but YouTube's kind of not really playing ball with me right now. So I'm on UgeTube, UGE Tube, and Rumble. And I'm thinking about maybe going to BitChute as well, but we'll see. But I also have a podcast where I go into a lot of these subjects in more detail. It's called Sidless Podcast. You can find me on Spotify, Anchor, Breaker. I'll put all of the other links in the description. But I'm on 6 different platforms as far as my podcast goes. And I want to be doing another podcast episode tomorrow, going into more detail about this stuff. So I'll end it there. Y'all have a good day, and see ya.